able to represent this beautiful town of Cardston. Help us that we may strive to make good choices and represent those well. We're thankful for all we have, and we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Well, today's the 10th day of March, and we have our regular town council meeting. Thank you to the media, Corey McCarthy. Thank you so much for being there. And we are grateful to have Tanya Thorns with us from AUMA to discuss some questions that we posed to her. So thank you for taking the time on this very windy day. It was pretty brutal. So we're calling the meeting to order. Any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, what would you like to add, Councillor?
I want a question under 11, under the confidential 11B. Are we going to discuss council protocol in that discussion?
Councillor, when we get to there, if that is a question that you want to pose, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So we will not make it as an addition to the agenda because that will be covered under 11B. Okay?
You bet.
Thank you. All right, so we need Councillor Drew.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda for the 10th of March 2020.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Tanya, you are delegation, so thank you very much. I know you have busy days and busy months.
I have a few, yes.
Go ahead.
So I will actually kind of answer questions. I think you guys have got questions for me, so maybe I'll let you ask me some questions and I'll try and provide you some answers back to the questions that you're having, and we can have a bit of a conversation, I guess. It's kind of my thought.
All right. So, one of the questions that we had for you is maybe the feeling that AUMA may be going more political than in the past, and we were just curious about that feelings we have that was demonstrated maybe at AUMA when we were in Red Deer. And I think, Councillor Barnes, you mentioned some things last meeting that really annoyed you.
Yeah, I guess the thing that annoyed me most was the suggestion, and maybe I'm assuming too much, but the suggestion that the policing costs should be passed on.
No. We're talking about the yellow, the
Colors.
Political.
Colors.
The colors.
Oh, yes,
pipelines.
that's one, but that, I've got a couple. Anyways, when in the past, AUMA colors are always up on the back, right? Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there, and that was the year that the NDP got voted in. I know what their colors are. And when the meeting started that morning, everything was fine, and then they started introducing the NDP, and all of a sudden the colors changed to orange. It was no longer, to me, a pure AUMA meeting. It was like, welcome to the NDP, and I'm thinking, oh, what's going on here? You know, why did these colors have to change for our meeting to suit the NDP government? Because that's exactly what happened, and that really bothered me. And talking to quite a few other councillors from other towns, it hit them the same way as it hit me. And I thought, AUMA has their colors, it's on the backdrops, leave it alone, just leave it there. So that it does, that to me was a sign of a political statement that, hey, we're happy you guys are here.
Okay. So I can't recall that scenario that the colors changed. AUMA is definitively a non-partisan organization. It's in our ethics. It's in our bylaws. It's in a lot of our value policies down that. And I know the 4 years that I've sat with AUMA, I've seen two different governments in that time frame. We haven't approached the NDP or the UCP government in any different manner than we for either one of them. We haven't treated them differently. We haven't interacted with them differently. And that's from my perspective. I will come back and ask a couple questions when I go back about the colors, because I don't think. I'm not 100%. It certainly wasn't something that was deliberately done down that path. So,
But although that it appeared that way.
I can't comment because I don't recall having seen that.
Well, there was, along with that, the little posters that were put on a table
Yeah.
Regarding the pipeline, and pipelines are welcome, or whatever the saying was, which we supported the idea of. But the background color there again was totally orange.
Well, and I'm not sure if that was a printing issue, because the Canadian Energy stuff that we've done, because I went back and looked at the Canadian Energy and Support Canadian Energy platform that we created, and it was all blue and red. So whether that was a printing issue, again, I just don't, you mentioned this when we talked on Friday, Maggie, and I kind of went back and I'm like, I don't recall us seeing there. So if it was something, I can definitively say it wasn't done because, it's NDP, so therefore our color should be orange. It could have simply been we designed it and didn't think about it, if that's how it came out. So I think the point I want to stress the most is we are a nonpartisan organization, and we behave and interact with the government of the day and the opposition of the day exactly the same way.
And we appreciate that. It's reassuring,
absolutely.
to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
It's very reassuring. Councillor Selk?
So along that same theme, Tanya, we can safely say that AUMA is equally critical of both parties?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Equally critical and equally as supportive if they, are doing things that make sense for municipalities. So it's on both sides of those fence. We will give them the kudos when they do things that make sense for us, and we will criticize them when they do things that don't make sense. We happen to be in the criticize forum more these days than we are in the kudos forum.
But I truly appreciate that. It's very important for us all to know that there is, for ourselves, the municipality, we try to be as neutral as possible. We have to work with all governments the same way as the UMA has to.
And as you guys' representation in the organization that kind of represents all of us, it is important that we are that voice regardless of who the government is, because it is truly about serving Albertans. So how do we most effectively serve Albertans? And it doesn't really matter who the councillors are at this table or the councillors or electeds at the federal or the provincial table. It's about serving Albertans. Yeah. So I can definitively say that is certainly the message that comes from AUMA. I believe our staff operates on that level as well. And certainly at the board table, it is very apparent.
Well, thank you. So if we take it as being critical of what you feel is not helping communities, it's fair. It's a fair comment. So there was another issue that we have is AUMA really pushed hard to have policing costs shared, what was called equitably between all, especially to address rural crime issues. But I think it's not turning out to be exactly what it should be. And today we met with Deputy Minister Hunter, who once again told us, but that's a making of a UMA. And so what we have difficulty with is the funding model or the cost recovery model that is being applied by the province to municipalities under 5,000. And what is bothersome to us is not so much that we have to pay a share, because we have a CPO1. So we're paying our share. And when we went and asked for an enhanced policing through the RCMP, we met with the local detachment, who told us, don't go that route. There are no extra bodies coming out of the depot. That told us, go for a CPO1. We will work with them. It'll be a better fit for your community. So we did exactly that. The difference between that and a full RC is not much difference because we had to buy a new truck outfitted properly. We had to have training for that person. We pay the wages of the CPO. So the difference is very, very minimal. So it's not that we don't want to participate in the cost. But now with a new model, cost recovery, we have that expense plus $75,000 this year, up to $217,000 in 2013. But we are assured also, because of the low crime rate, that we will not have extra pair of boots on the ground. So now we have to tax. So that's rather interesting. And the government won't let us show that item as a line item on the tax bill that is sent, that told us that it has to be part of the municipal tax portion. We cannot have municipal tax, housing for the aged, and education and policing, because policing is what municipalities do. So we cannot show it as a separate line item. So it doesn't seem quite right. We would like to be able to show it as a separate line, as this is a tax that we incurred because now we have to participate. The other portion that we pay for, that is our CPO, is in our municipal tax portion. So there is an issue, and the greater issue is that now there is an offset that is given to towns who had the benefit of an enhanced policing, or RCMP, or from the town, enhanced policing. But we are penalized
For the CPO.
for the same thing. It does not seem right. So we asked Minister Hunter if there was something else we could do. And his reply was, talk to the surgeon and force your issue there, because he tried to force it and didn't go nowhere. And I'm thinking, if the minister can go nowhere, how am I going to get the ear of Mr. Schweitzer? I like to have an answer. So since there are so many towns, municipalities, rural municipalities who are exactly in the same conundrum, can AUMA take a position for us?
Yeah, so lots of things in that. So let me see if I can break it down, and if I've missed anything, we'll come back to it. So first of all, AUMA did advocate for an equitable police funding model. That was a resolution that came to convention floor. That resolution passed by the membership. I believe it was a 76% vote in favor of an equitable police model, funding model. So that was a membership-directed resolution that came, and AUMA follows through on those, right? We all as members can vote for those, and yes, no, and that decides what AUMA will focus on. The rollout of what model is before us is certainly not what AUMA presented on. So I would challenge that we still aren't quite at an equitable pay model across the province in terms of policing. But at the same time, there is at least people paying. I think where the challenge comes with that, so down that path, is that the resources that are tied to the additional dollars, and there's a lack of clarity around how those resources are going to be allocated, where they're going to be allocated, and how long we're going to wait for them to be allocated. So certainly something that AUMA was advocating for was the delaying of the implementation of this till 2021, so that those details could be figured out and so that municipalities had the ability to deal with it for their 2020 budgets and not after the fact. So a few things that are happening in the process right now. So the Solicitor General is establishing a police advisory board. It'll be comprised of 4 RMA members, 4 AUMA members, 1 member of the Alberta Police Association of Police Governance. AUMA we're just in the process of looking at terms of reference right now. AUMA is advocating to change that split. We'd like to see 5 AUMA and 3 RMA reps on it, so that is what we're advocating for right now. So that advisory board, I'd like to tell you I know what it's going to be, but the terms of reference haven't even been finalized yet. So we're waiting for that to happen. I know there's been meetings. We're hoping the first meeting of that board will kind of be in, or it'll come to at least our board or our executive terms of references in the April timeframe. That's kind of the plan. Then also at AUMA's Municipal Leaders Caucus, RCMP and SolGen, Justice and SolGen, will be in attendance for a session that's there to primarily talk about how they plan to roll things out, how they plan to deal with resourcing, and answer questions. So that's kind of what's happening currently. The government certainly, Grant Hunter's words of that this is an AUMA outcome, he's not wrong, but at the same time, they're casting that stone now because the rollout has gone so poorly. So they're landing it on our shoulders that it's our fault. So that's fine. That's how it works, I guess. But we certainly aren't happy with the way that things were rolled out. I don't think the model that's there really addresses some of the core issues with that. Credits. I think that there is a position. So you and I had talked at President's Summit about that issue. So it is on the radar of AUMA of trying to get some answers from Justice and SolGen of why do CPOs not qualify under the credit side of things, because I think that is a very valid statement for you and other communities that are like you. You've chosen to go that route. Your RCMP is working with the route you've chosen and is trying to integrate them in there. So we need to acknowledge that that is a method of how that is. So I think there's still an opportunity to do that. Maggie, Mayor, and sorry. I think there's an opportunity still to do that and still do that advocation or that advocacy work. I've brought it forward just from a conversation with us, but it'd probably be worthwhile to put that in a letter. You can copy me on it and send it to Barry, or whichever way, send it to me, copy the AUMA, however you want to put it out, but send it in a formal letter of those are kind of the concerns, and there'll probably be a few things we'll put in that letter by the time I'm done here today. So that would be something that I would recommend that you do, and we can certainly look at that piece, because I do think it is a gap.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you can acknowledge that there is something there that's fishy and not to our benefit, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for advocating for us. That's great.
Just
Councillor
a
Barnes?
comment, and it's nothing that you can really much do. Maybe you could pass it on, but when I think about how it was brought to us that we were going to have to start paying, we'd already had our budget already set,
Yeah.
as did everybody else,
Correct.
and it's really throwing everybody for a loop. And I look at the town of Fort Macleod, they had to let all their CPOs go. Every one of them. They had 3 of them.
Yeah. Because
they can't afford to do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and so it really caught everybody unawares, and it's tough. I mean, we had to do an awful lot of cutbacks before we even got to a balanced budget, and then that got thrown at us in the middle of the whole process.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult.
And I think, Councillor Barnes, I think that's the theme, not just on policing. I think that's the theme across a lot of things that we've seen at the municipal level, is we seem to be the most impacted by decisions that they make, but we seem to be the last that know about them.
Yeah.
And AUMA is actively trying to change the consultation that is occurring, but our definition of consultation and the province's definition of consultation right now aren't even from the same dictionary, quite frankly.
Exactly.
So I think your concern is absolutely valid, and it's one of the reasons why we were advocating, and RMA were advocating so hard of, okay, you're going to go forward with this model, okay, we'll accept that, but let's implement for 2021, because everybody's done their budgets, for exactly like you said. So what the province's response to that was okay, well, we'll let you pay in January of 2021, which I think highlights another example of how the province doesn't understand how our budget process works.
Well, because this is the thing. Our budgets have to be balanced. Theirs aren't.
No.
And it's easy for them to come preach to us responsibility, but they're not playing by the same rules at all. And so to me, it's an insult, absolutely an insult. And the meetings that I've gone to other communities, and I've talked to the councillors, and they're just livid as well. And I'm not happy either.
Yeah, and understandably so. So I don't know what the answer is to it. You can't force them to play by a set of rules. So we have to deal with the hand we're dealt. And I realized I missed asking, you mentioned the tax bill, that you were told you can't put a line on the tax bill.
Correct.
I'd challenge that a little bit, because I know that if I take a look at different tax bills I've seen across different municipalities, they're not all laid out the same. So I'm challenged that the province can dictate how you choose to present your tax bill to your residents. So I'm challenged by that. I put it in the letter. We'll dig a little bit more with that, but I'd be challenged because it's your tax bill. It's the bill you are sending. Yeah. And I don't believe there's anything that I can, off the top of my head, recall in the MGA that lays out what the format of that should look like. I know there's a bunch of municipalities that are considering how they're going to change headings and classification on that tax bill for the education requisition. So I'd be challenged on that piece, Maggie, that you guys can't lay it out. If you wanted to lay out every service that you charge and this is the rate for it, I think that's fully in your authority. But we'll double check that. But I'd be shocked that you can't lay out your tax bill how you want to lay it out.
Let me ask, Jeff, that information came from where?
It'd be best to ask Jill, to be honest. She belongs to a group of the financial officers.
Oh,
that'd be better, some GFOA stuff. It'd be better to ask her first.
Yeah, and there might possibly be something there, and but I know that I know my municipality is talking about how we might be changing some layout of our own tax bill. We're not itemizing that item out, but we are changing how some headings and titles might look.
Well, because for us it's important for the public to understand.
Yep.
If taxes increase, they need to understand why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question, Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Tanya, I understand from your discussion now that you're representing all small communities. You're our voice at the table. So in this consultation period, the thing that sticks in my mind is the most previous one, or the most prevalent one, that sits out right now, is prohibition order. And it deals with our community, mostly and mainly our community, and the small communities surrounding us. How did you consult on our behalf on that question?
That would require that we knew it was going to happen. So hard to consult on your behalf when we didn't know the change was going to occur.
And that's a point.
No consultation.
Yeah.
That is the point. It's not the day before when you get a phone call that you're going to
They're doing it.
be able to change anything. It's too late, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that is something I brought up at Mayors and Reeve quite loudly, and Tanya was there, and it pleased me greatly to let them know how displeased I was.
Yeah, and I think, and I briefly said it, and I said it at Mayors and Reeves as well, there needs to be a definition from the province of what consultation means. Because I actually don't think that their definition of it is the definition that we're operating under. So we just need them to share when they say consultation, it means when I call the mayor at 8 o'clock the night before we put legislation in place, that's consultation. And if that's what it is, then let's just call it that so that we can all move on and go, okay, yes, we were consulted, but now let's talk the real story. So we knew nothing, we knew no more. Well, you actually probably knew more about it than we did. We didn't get the 8 o'clock phone call.
Suggestion. I would suggest, Tanya, that before we have anything like that go through AUMA, that our CAO is directed by council. That's our only employee. And we'll ask him to deliver our references and our points of interest on any of these things as long as we know what's happening. We haven't known about prohibition. We did not. It took us right off our feet. So what you're saying is it happens the night before that AUMA finds out?
No. The night before, Councillor Bengry, I received a phone call from MLS Cow.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock at night, advising me that Bill 2 was coming, and that was the essence of the changes.
So, and from an AUMA perspective, we knew about Bill 2 when Bill 2 was announced, the day it was announced. So we knew Bill 2, we knew Bill 2 was coming. We all knew Bill 2 was coming, but we didn't know the details of what was in Bill 2. No different than there's a bill coming on the Local Authorities Election Act. We know it's coming. There's nobody that knows what's in the bill because it was supposed to be open consultation, but yet in the throne speech, there's details in the throne speech about what's going to be in the bill. So,
Then I'm suggesting that's one area that AUMA better get it together. It sounds like our big cities like Calgary and Edmonton know more of what's happening in the future than our small communities. And I'm not blaming it on you, Tanya. I'm blaming it on the AUMA to the government consultation situation. So we need to look at that very seriously.
Yeah, respectfully, I'll disagree with you on this. AUMA is doing everything in its power to encourage consultation, but when the other side of the fence, and I will equate it to an ICF, when your neighboring partner or your partner that's supposed to be at the table doesn't come to the table, it's hard to have a discussion. Yeah. So AUMA is absolutely in agreement that we need to have these consultations. But we can show up at the table and sit there by ourselves and assess how we do it. If the province doesn't come to the table, there is no discussion. And that is the core problem.
Yeah, I believe, Councillor Bengry, that Tanya touched on an important topic because at Mayors and Reeve, Deputy Minister Hunter noted that much progress needs to be done in a consultation process with municipality, with the UMA. So if that is something that they have on the radar, good for us all.
But Tanya, don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming you for not consulting on our behalf. I just want to have more information as a councillor so that I can make decisions which are for my community.
Yeah, but
and that's what all councils want.
And I being an elected myself, I 100% concur with that statement. But if the people that have the information don't disseminate the information in a timely manner, it really is difficult for us to have the information until after the fact, and then that's a matter of us figuring out, okay, what do we do with this from here?
Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bengry.
Okay, so I do have a question. You were speaking about in April that there's this board that is being put together. So who is sitting on this board, and will they be able to sit down at the table? Like, go ahead.
Great question.
Perfect.
I don't know if I have an answer yet. So we at the executive level for AUMA, which I'm a member of that executive, are trying, one, we want to see terms of reference. So what we at the moment have decided as an executive is myself and Angela Duncan, who is our villages rep, will take two of the spots on this original board, on the original one. One, we're both impacted by it. Well, I'm not, because I'm in a community that's not, but members that I represent are significantly impacted. And I'm very passionate about policing in general. So I also sit on the contract management committee with at the federal level for the RCMP contract. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. What we're going to do with the next two positions, we don't know yet, because we don't know what the terms of reference are. So we're waiting for that to kind of get floated out and decided on to determine, okay, what makes the most sense at this table. So it's a work in progress, again, not knowing exactly what we're dealing with.
Go ahead.
Part B to that question. So once you have the executive or whoever is chosen to sit at this table, are you going to be able to sit across from the government and discuss this? Because we can have all the boards we want, and they're fantastic, but unless the government's willing to meet with us, it's useless.
Yeah, and again, that's partly why we're waiting to see what the terms of reference really lay out of what is this board designed to do. So from AUMA and from RMA's perspective, I would say we're aligned on this. The intent is, because one of the things that as we've talked about equitable policing is to have, if you're going to pay for policing, you need to have a say in policing. So as we've talked about this equitable policing, that has been a key element of we need to have this piece. Sorry. So that's the hope of what the terms of reference are going to facilitate.
Right.
But I can say the first draft was lacking a little bit. So we did all come back. I don't know where it's at yet. Okay. So that is the intent.
Yes.
But again, like everything, we're waiting to see what actually rolls out.
Okay.
Councillor Bengry, you surely have a noisy dog.
Yeah, I can hear him too, and it annoys me. I'm sorry about that.
Want me to come and take care of that dog for you?
I just thought the dog was trying to tell us what to do.
Tanya, I have one more question for you. It's regarding the budget. Mm-hmm. In the light of what's unveiling worldwide, province-wide, Canada-wide, and the fact that the barrel of oil is now at $17 a barrel, where are we going with a budget that is based on $60 a barrel?
Yeah. I don't know if I can answer that question. It's certainly a concern when the budget is for this year is based on $56 oil. We're nowhere near that. So we already know we're 2 weeks into the budget and we're offside significantly. The Premier's come out and said that they're not going to balance the budget and that it's coronavirus related. Anyways, I have other comments. I'll just bite my tongue. So I do think that I believe that us as municipal governments, the federal government, the provincial government are all going to need to have a look at what are we going to deal with, how are we going to deal with the global crisis that's currently facing us all. Because I think it's a unique situation. So actually driving down here, I was listening to a really good program about if there was ever a time to be investing in the economy, this is the time that governments should be investing in economies and running deficits. Because of the economic impact that everything that's going on is going to have. So I think the provincial government is going to be faced with some very significant challenges of how they're going to manage, and I don't have a sense of what that's going to be. But I do believe that as municipalities, we need to be prepared that it might not be, it may have an impact on us.
Well, you're hitting probably what I have in my mind, which is a transfers to municipalities through MSI or through whichever other model is coming in 2 years' time. There is already, within 3 years, a drop of 37%, just about around that figure. And, it's a little worrisome because if the new model is linked to the economy and especially to the oil, where are we going in terms of a transfer to the municipalities? In 3 years' time, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I absolutely, I agree. I've been on this mantra, and this is my personal mantra, not necessarily an AMA mantra, but that we need to rethink how we do budgeting in general. And to be forecasting a budget on an oil price, I'd sooner see us do a budget and put an oil price of $20 a barrel, even though that today would still be a bad price. You know, and deal with the surplus versus we're budgeting for a outcome that, you know, but that's been a mantra from economists in this province for decades. That's just not new, but we don't change our way of thinking. So as much as the global impacts that are happening, COVID-19, everything that's going on, oil pricing, all of those, it may be exactly the impetus and the critical state that's going to force us to look at things differently as a group. Because it is going to require federal, provincial, and municipal governments to be on the same page, in the same boat, with the same paddles. And that's my personal opinion. But I think that we've got a problem on our hands, and I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know the solution, but I do know that if we don't all start working together and remove the partisan politics that are in government and actually start doing some stuff as unified to find true solutions that better Albertans, we're not going to help each other. And I know Rachel Notley today proposed an all-party committee around oil specifically, but that is, in my opinion, a move in the right direction if that can happen. Because it's going to take all the brains we've got in this province to figure this out.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Jeff, you have one.
Don't mind me asking one.
No.
Just because I'm curious on the new municipal fiscal framework, I'm actually curious where it's at in its progression. If the formula is established, if we are linking it to specific revenues, and then what's the role right now of AUMA in that negotiation?
Great. Yeah, good questions. So basically, what we know right now that in 2022-23, that there's going to be $455 million for the two big cities, and then there's $405 million for the balance of us. So that is still there. Same split as the current MSI program. AUMA is still advocating that level of funding is too low. We advocated with that for the previous government. We are continuing that there. So that's the capital side of things. The what's the new LGFF? Fiscal framework, yeah, bad wording. Allocation discussions on that have not started. We have no sense as to the timeline for them to start. So we've continually asking we'd like to get to the table and start. The previous government had asked RMA and AUMA to determine the allocation formula and figure that out before we talked about anything. So we had started those conversations, but we certainly didn't come to a decision on that. So we'd certainly be interested in any feedback you guys have on how allocation should be handled in terms of the new framework. But yeah, there's been no conversations, no indication of a timeline in the next month, 6 months, year. So, yeah.
So thank you so much. Anything else, Jeff, that we
I don't think I gave
did
you
not
warm and happy
cover?
feelings.
I just hadn't heard for a while where
Yeah.
it was at, so it's great.
Yeah.
I'm actually quite intrigued on the notion of still being able to potentially give input on allocations, because Councillor Selk, you and I have talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
On maybe re-looking at that allocation model.
Yeah.
To distribute that a little better throughout the province. So if that window's still open, I think we'd like to give some input.
Yeah, so I definitely encourage you to send in that input, because what we've been told is that the allocation discussion is still up for grabs. That's the communication we've had, and we certainly haven't come to any resolution as to what is the best. So certainly, if you've got ideas, we are happy to hear them and see them. Yeah.
So thank you. So what we will do then, we will kind of send you a little bit of synopsis of the point that we feel needs to be kind of advocated for
You bet.
at the AUMA table.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would appreciate that. And just confirming, you all do get an update from me.
Yes.
I would like to say it's monthly, but let's be realistic. It's about every 2 months.
But we appreciate how dedicated you are. You are very knowledgeable, and a great support to all small communities, and much appreciated.
Yeah.
And really, in a larger framework of AUMA, you're really a great asset
Great.
to us all. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having
Thank
me,
you.
and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Drive home safe.
I will. I'll get below in the under.
Yes.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll push you a little quicker.
Gas mileage going on.
Well, we recognize Dr. Lowe and James Henline, and that's our next delegation, just on time.
I hope you're excited to see us, so we're not like,
And
guys again. Oh, you're tired of us, probably. It's like, oh, man.
Already seen
well,
you today.
you know, every time there's a new piece of the puzzle, you sometimes have to reorganize your strategy, right?
That's right.
So that's what you're here to help us navigate.
Right. Do you want me to just fire away?
Yeah, why don't you get them up to speed on our last meeting and maybe where we're at?
Okay. So, sort of to summarize, at the end of last meeting, we had decided to go ahead at the location at the Lions Park with the full recirculation system and kind of get the ball rolling. There were some concerns raised by Randy Russell and also Jeff about maintenance of a recirculation system. As far as keeping it clean, what do you do about animal waste, human waste, all that kind of stuff. And we didn't know all the answers. So what we did was we had a meeting with his name's Robert Rippon, the Alberta Health water quality guy in the zone, and there was also a swimming.
Is he from AHS?
Yeah, from Alberta Health Services.
Okay,
and there was
all
a swimming pool specialist as well who's over the swimming pools in the South Zone. And us and Randy and Bart and Jeff, just to kind of discuss what that looks like. So apparently with the recirculation system, what we were told is that the majority of spray parks in Alberta actually don't have recirculation systems. There's a few that do. And the reason is because there's a lot of stuff that comes along with a recirculation system. One of them is you need bathrooms and showers with soap, all right beside a spray park, which I'm not sure we're excited about down there. Also, in order to keep it free from dogs and everything, we'd have to fence in the spray park. And then there's the daily maintenance of, you know, going off and blowing off the spray pad to keep it cleaner, water samples daily. The ones that do have recirculation systems occasionally have to shut down for parts of the day to rechlorinate and do a bunch of stuff. So pretty much what we got from the two Alberta Health people was it's certainly simpler from an ongoing maintenance point of view to not do a recirculation system. Greg Beekman was there from BDI Play Designs, and they did the one in Fort Macleod, and theirs is not on a recirculation system. And he says their maintenance is they fire it up in the spring, and the town basically doesn't have to worry about it till the fall when we blow out the pipes and everything. There's very little ongoing maintenance. So then where the debate comes in is the cost of a recirculation system's ongoing maintenance on a year-to-year basis versus the cost of water usage in a non-recirculation system. I believe an email was sent out to you with estimated water use. So just so you know, at max capacity, our spray park could run 600 gallons per minute. The one in Waterton is 800 gallons per minute, but at any given time, it's not running at max. It's usually running at 25 to 30 to maybe 35% of its capacity, and that's only when people are there and activate it with the button. So basically, the estimates on this page are what Greg from BDI sent us with total water usage, and it works out to be about 8,200 cubic meters for the season on average for most of these spray parks. I'm not sure what that equates to money-wise.
We're at $1.06 a meter is what the value of water in town is right now. I believe it's
About
$1.06. Does that sound right?
85,000.
Yeah, still about $1.
So, yeah. So, I mean, if give or take, if you're 8,200, so you're probably looking at like somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 of water cost. Now that's market cost, is that right?
That's the retail price. Yes.
That's retail price.
So say that again, 10 to
Sorry, say what?
the cost.
The total
the
cost
of
estimate?
Right now in town, everyone pays, I think it's $1.06 a meter, a cubic meter.
Oh, cubic meter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you do 8,200 times 1.06, yeah, 8,500. I estimate on busier, hotter summers, that number may be up closer to 10,000.
So that would be an average for a summer.
Of just the
use.
water, yeah. But the maintenance cost would be much, much, much lower than a recirculation system. I also think with the recirculation system, after having this meeting, it would become a very big headache for our maintenance crew, people like Randy and others. And the added cost of, building on showers and fencing it off, which a lot of the spray parks I've gone to, they're not fenced off, they're open to just wide open. So basically after coming out of that meeting, we really felt like we should not do a recirculation system. If we went that route, one extra benefit of that is the recirculation system costs an estimated $50,000 to install. So we wouldn't have that on the actual installation. So basically the money that we've raised would pay then for that running of the 4-inch line out there, the infrastructure. So it takes a significant cost off of the project construction. And so the number that the town would put in was pretty much right back at that 97,000 that you guys had committed, instead of adding on the extra 30,000 for the infrastructure and more for the lighting and other stuff. So the money of the construction works out better, and there's no extra, not as much extra cost. Now I know that just in speaking with Jeff and others, water conservation is an important thing. And so that's one thing that we wanted to just come and ask you guys about. After hearing the details, what are your thoughts on if we really pushed for a non-recirculation system, knowing that we'd have an open spray park, not needing those showers, not fenced in? A lot of the risk of water quality is taken out because it's town water that comes in and then it goes into the sewer, so you don't have to worry about all that cleanliness stuff.
Well, does anybody want to talk? Otherwise, here are my personal feelings. Nobody wants to talk at this point. I really believe that if we have to look at the health aspect of a spray park, it's becoming obvious that a non-recirculating system is a more viable solution. It has its downsides, is that a lot of water is running away. But when you start to really look at the two aspects, to me, one mitigates the health, lowers the maintenance, lowers the cost of installation, and then you have the cost of the water. it seems to me from just a business perspective, there is more sense in yet using water and let it flow. Yeah. Because it seems to be, at the end, the healthier solution.
And when we left that meeting, it felt like I don't know, it just felt better.
No, I was just going to add to that. I'm in the pool a lot with swim club and stuff, and recirculating, that freaks me out, especially in your chemical levels, all of that is a pile of work. Yeah. And from day one, I've wondered about that. It sounded like that was what you guys were pitching, but I, of course, had no idea what the water cost was or the ruling or anything, but I just feel like the mayor said, health-wise, it's less terrifying as a mother or as a grandmother of having kids in there. I would just feel better about clean water rather than recirculating heaven knows what, even though, the town, of course, would do their best, as we do at the pool, but you do have to shut down. We do have accidents that happen. Yeah. That's a reasonable assumption. Yeah. So if we are doing this, I feel, like you said, I feel like way more comfortable going this route.
Yes, we have always preached to be frugal with water. It's a limited commodity. Yeah. But on that one, I'm afraid the water run is the right way to go.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, you just said let the water run. But to be clear, right, so we don't have people freaking out, the water is not continually running.
No, it is 3 months.
Yeah, well, no, but it's motion sensor.
No,
so
totally.
Just
totally.
To be clear,
okay.
The water only comes off and on according to people being there. It's not going to be running from sun up all through the night.
So there's,
just to be clear.
Councillor Brown, you are correct. My way of saying let the water run.
I can hear that phone call.
Let the water not be recirculated. That's what I meant.
It'll only be going when people are there and activate it.
Exactly.
Right. And it usually runs in 10-minute cycles. So once you activate it, it's not going to run for 3 hours. It's going to, yeah.
The other thing is that we can also indicate when we want that to be on as well. So we can it's going to be on from 11 till 8 o'clock at night. So it's not running again all day and night.
So someone can go there in the middle of the night and activate it and.
Because there could be other issues with that too, of water consumption, et cetera.
Councillor.
That was my question. So,
okay. Yeah. So thank you so much for your presentation. Maybe then we'll have to finally crunch the number last time, and hopefully we're there.
Like we're done.
So my last thing is, BDI was here at our meeting and they said, once the frost is out of the ground, and then Jeff said, well, the frost is out of the ground here in Cardston, they said, we're ready to go. So I guess my question is, if we have approval at that location without a recirculation system, can we get our people going? You know, we had someone who was going to remove that structure. We have someone going to remove the cement pad. Someone going to do the couple of trees that are in that spot. Are you okay if we get the ball rolling?
Dr. Lowe, I think it would be more advisable to talk with administration because he has a staff to be able to kind of direct when the proper timing will be. We're not very well in that department.
And just to be clear, because we had Andy Strang come and talk to us, just to be clear, that you guys talked to them in regards to the moving of that, building, whatever we're calling that.
Yeah.
Have you talked to him? Have you talked to them?
So he's come to some of our meetings.
I attended their last line meeting as well.
And
that's what we discussed.
Okay, so it's already been, so we're not going to hear, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that we.
Actually, I'm not going to guarantee you're not going to hear about it. I'm just tell you that I talked to them.
After last time we were here, we had to go and stuff, but I went back and watched it and everything, and I know there was some stuff that was brought up, so.
Just wanted to make sure that we're
certainly aware of all of that. And
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And if they want us to come again, we're more than happy to. So.
Well, I'm sure they will like a definite participation with a new building.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And
all right. Thank you very much. It's a labor of love, but it's coming to an end.
We're
almost.
So close. We're so close. Should be up and going for this season.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. All right, we have adoptions of minutes that needs to be done for the February 25th meeting. Councillor Selk? Okay, so Councillor Selk moves to approve the minutes. All in favor? Councillor Bengry, are you
Yes.
voting? Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. We now go on the 7 other business. Delbert Beezer Golf Association. Anybody wants to address that? You have a document that has been forwarded to us. They have given us the terms of reference, and they have also given us members that are officially the signers under those terms of reference to create a society bylaw. So there is Delbert Beezer, Ryan Jensen, Stan Bishop, and Mark Device. Okay? So that's for our information. On the 7B,
Mayor,
yes,
please don't move on yet.
do you have something else regarding that item?
Got a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, please then help us, because I was not sure what to make
It's all in red, isn't it, Jeff?
this.
So the group would like to negotiate a memorandum of understanding, some type of contractual arrangement to proceed with the project. And for that, there's a number of questions that I wanted to discuss to make sure that I understood council's level of comfort or your preference in how we should manage this. So what I did is I put the letter that Mr. Beezer had sent about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. I put it back in the agenda and then in red is questions I had about how should we start to approach this relationship. So if you don't mind, Mayor, do you want me to start to go through that?
Please go ahead.
So his first thing was ownership of the project. And they seem to have a preference that the association has ownership of this project and then delivers us a finished product. That has some complications and some concerns. It's not out of the question, I suppose. Nothing is, but there's some things I wanted to talk about is, do we have any intention of any ownership ever being transferred? Is this starting as a town project and ending as a town project? And do we relinquish control? Not even, I don't want to sound like it's a control thing, but in some degrees it is. Do we contract the association on our behalf to build this building, for example, to maybe general contract the building in some way? Or how do you see that ownership of the project transpiring through from conception to completion?
Can I just,
Councillor Drew.
I think we have to have, you don't want to call it control, but let's say that the
Oversight.
association contracts that, they get it going, and then it doesn't get finished. We're going to be the ones, the town will be responsible for that, right? To finish that off. So, I mean, I don't think we have to relinquish any control to them. We can allow them as association to do the fundraising and to get that built, but that's just me.
I can give you an example on a smaller scale with the spray park. So the Rotarians are literally saying, here's the money, and they bring us a check, and then now we carry out the project. We have contracted with BDI, not the Rotarians. We will contract with the people on site, and they're simply saying, here's the money we raise. So that's one way to do it. This is a lot more complicated than that, by the way, but it's an example.
Councillor Selk.
I think it's a philosophical conversation that needs to take place regarding this. And I think what this golf association is saying is that we need to have control of it, because then we can get volunteer labor. We can get different sources of funding that you can't get as a town. We can do other things. And the bottom line is if they're doing it, they're probably gonna do it cheaper than what we can do it for. You know, they're gonna, I mean, I think if you talk to a lot of contractors, they'll tell you, we can build stuff cheaper than you can because you have so many hoops that you have to jump through with respect to bidding and awarding tenders and all that stuff. Whereas if we're doing it, we're gonna do it this way and we're gonna do it in the most cost-efficient way possible. So we think that we can do it less expensive than what you can do it. So that it's that whole philosophical conversation. And I don't know. I'm kind of the opinion that if we can work something out in our MOU where it's like, go for it, boys. Make sure that you have yourself covered legally. Don't drag us into any legal aspects of this. And then when the keys are turned over, thank you very much for your work.
Councillor Selk, I am a little bit of the same mindset, but there is something for me that is very concerning, is all the legal aspect of letting a party outside the town deal with it, and how do we protect ourselves insurance-wise?
Good question, man. And I think that might take a little bit of
Negotiation.
No, it might take seeking some legal opinions on this from whoever we contract as lawyers to say, how can we do this, give them the latitude they need, but protect us from a legal perspective?
I'm just thinking now on this. There's in procurement law, in the procurement rules, you can contract with an entity to do a design build where you, it's basically your, for lack of a, boy, this is probably completely incorrect if you were like an engineer, but you're essentially figuring out the project as you go. So you're not selecting a contractor based on price. You're selecting a contractor based on a variety of other factors that you think will help you get to the end goal. And I guess I'm just trying to think around, okay, so what if we contracted the association to design, build this project? The budget's set, by the way. You have a max budget, and they have to provide this. Yeah, there may be some things to look at there. I don't know the exact answer, but.
Go ahead.
Okay, because I can kind of envision where this association is going. I mean, they're probably going to hit up someone to donate dirt work, and they're going to hit up someone to donate concrete, and they're going to hit up someone to donate gravel, and they're going to hit up someone to donate actual labor for building it. And they're going to, that's how they're going to get their skin in the game on this, is they're going to get people who are willing to volunteer to help build this without actually charging. That's my anticipation. So,
another question I have regarding that same concept is, where's the quality control and who deals with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, good question. Yeah.
No, I think the association would recognize everything they do has to be built to code, because everything that we do has to be built to code, whether the town builds it or a private contractor builds. They have to do it according to code.
Right, because at the end we inherit something that needs to be up to code. So all that aspect, I don't really know how you navigate that.
So tell me if I'm hearing you correctly, I think I am, that if we can determine the parameters that gives the town the preferred end product, that we would give them latitude in the process to get there if we're comfortable that it will be within a approved budget and it will be meeting building codes. We're not going to inherit a lemon, something that we have to pump a bunch of money into. There are some on-site liability, some CRA things we'd have to work through, but you're comfortable potentially, and I didn't hear this from all of you, but you're potentially comfortable with some latitude of the association to take this on, provided we're getting the deliverable that we expected for the budget we expected at the quality we expected.
That would be pretty well what I think it is.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Councillor Drew?
So I've general contracted 3 houses on my own, and I've always had to have builder's insurance.
Yeah.
So I mean, from a legal standpoint, if they're going to do that, they
Yeah.
in our agreement, they would have to have some
Yeah.
type of building insurance to cover the if the building burned down while they were doing some electrical, or if somebody was hurt, or that kind of stuff. Because I was subbing out stuff for my house that I couldn't do, so I had other people coming in, and I had to cover all that too, right? So I'm sure that we can work in something like that.
Councillor Brown or Councillor Barnes, do you want to add something to that?
I think if I can, I think I understand what Councillor Selk is saying. I understand what the mayor is saying. It's just the word, should ownership be transferred? That's the transferred is what I struggle with the most, because it feels like when we built the soccer field, we had money, we did things in kind, we had the county stuff, we had all of those people come in, do our groundworks, our concrete, our whatever, and we at no point transferred anything. Like, there was no transference, but we still had a say and kept the project running, and, you know, Stacey Atwood oversaw a lot. And so I guess I understand what Councillor Selk is saying. I've seen how we do it, so I know it's not like the town is just going to come in and take it all over. So but that's just my experience.
I think, too, we may be interpreting well, I don't want to be redundant, how they interpret ownership. I don't know if they actually mean to own the physical chattels on that legal term of ownership, but that actual, you know, we want the sense of ownership. This is going to be our baby type of idea.
I think they've kind of addressed that, because they've said right from the outset, they know the town will be the owners of the property and building during and after construction.
Okay.
They've stated that, so they're not saying that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want to clarify that with Delbert and his group, but I think they've said that the ownership is ours.
This is a little offside. Are we all on a page here that if they are a design building, you're not interested in letting them entertain any kind of borrowing for this project, are we? We're not going to assume any debt for this project?
That never was the intent.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that's clear.
And I don't think that's their intent.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I have to work with CRA. We've run into troubles before. We ran into it with the soccer field about issuing charitable donation receipts for certain aspects of construction that is then turned over to us or done by a third party. The rules are subtle but important, so we have to work through that a little bit, because I'd like to be able to issue those where there are donors. I think that's important that we can do that. So, but we ran into a couple of larger pieces of the puzzle at the soccer park that we couldn't end up pulling the trigger on for donations. So we have a few things to learn there too, and what that looks like.
Well, we'll leave you up to it.
So the second piece is on decision making. What role do you want in establishing the parameters of the facility? So we'll be the ones collectively that own and operate and maintain this in perpetuity. So it is reasonable that you're some kind of stakeholder in setting the parameters of what it is. In the, what I would say maybe unlikely, but certainly interesting and positive, if they raise more than they thought and can make this thing bigger and better than they thought, are we going to try and constrain those parameters to some point, looking at the perpetual maintenance? And what role do you want in that at this stage?
Anybody? Councillor Selk?
Yeah. Again, I'm sort of interpreting here, but I think what they're saying is that, you know, they want to design it and they want to be able to have some measure of control over that. However, I think they would want us to have some input into their final let us see what the final product looks like, and then we can tweak if need be.
Okay, Councillor Brown?
And I think, like Councillor Selk and myself, having sat on that board, the Golf Advisory Committee, who better to design other than golfers? Like, I don't know what y'all want in that building. And so just sitting and listening to them, they know. They know what... So I think they're a great asset as far as that goes. I think hearing their perspectives and their ideas is incredibly important.
Councillor Barnes, and then I might add 2 cents.
When they presented the plan, the proposed plan, or concept, I like what I saw with that concept. And I think that they've got an idea how much it's going to cost. if they, I mean, chances are they're probably going to be toughened to get the money to finish that part of it. But if by some stretch of the imagination they come with an extra $100,000 or $200,000, my preferences would be to put that money into a contingency fund for problems that might come up, or
costs,
to help with the maintenance or the operations down the road. So I'd kind of like to see them stick with the design that they presented to us. That's my feel.
Okay, there is one element.
I don't want to tie their hands
No.
too much, you know.
But there is an element that is an important one for council, because the building itself, they can build it as big as their funds will allow them to.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, the bigger the venue,
The maintenance
the
costs go
more
up.
the more maintenance costs will be incurred. So that is where council has to decide what is something that we can sustain as a yearly operational cost deficit, because there's rarely money to be made on any of those facilities. So what is it?
And that's a great point, Mayor. I think one of the benefits, though, of this association is that they then have the opportunity to tap into like casino funds and other things that
As a society,
as
yeah.
a society, so that they can put that towards the ongoing operation of that facility.
But except that is every 3 years, every 2 years, and it's $30,000.
Something.
You know, it's about 30,000. So it's something that would help, but it's not going to fix the whole of the building.
I think we need to recognize, too, that this group looks at it not like a clubhouse, but as an event center.
Yeah.
So that weddings and conventions and, you know, whatever, meetings can take place there beside, it's not, they don't want it labeled as a clubhouse. They are pretty adamant about that, so.
So maybe that is a little bit more work that needs to be done on that regarding budgeting, or from their perspective, maybe they can work on it a little bit more.
So are you comfortable if the association presents to council prior to commencing final design, capital budget, and proposed operating costs, and you would have to have a resolution to support those things prior to commencement, but they can design that and present it however that works best, but you're not going to necessarily be involved in the process that gets to that?
Right.
Is that fair?
Right.
I think that
Okay.
would work. Councillor Bengry, are you okay with that?
Well, my concern is like Delbert brought it out, is the ownership situation, town versus the association, until complete. Now, when we're talking that this council is only going to be in for the next 2 years, and like Delbert points out in this letter, principles of this building and the design of this building. Are we going to have councillors that come on board and say, hey, I don't like that design, and since we own the building, we're going to change it? And every change is more money. And so I think we need to get really, really serious at what we're going to do with the ownership of this. Is it going to be the association is a general contractor and own the building until it's turned over to the town, or what's the situation? My concern is very much a concern.
Okay, so Councillor Selk is going to talk.
I think most of those concerns, Councillor, are going to be buttoned down in the MOU, so that, you know, we can't fetter future councils, but we can reach a solid MOU that sets up terms and conditions that will be comfortable for this group going forward, so that they have they have the assurances that they need to be able to do what they need to do.
Good. That's what I'd be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, do you want to carry
The other
on?
one they asked about permitting requirements, electrical or utility extensions, all that. My thought here, my question was, do permitting cost utility extensions need to be included in the fundraising, or is council open to absorb these? But then after I typed that up and got thinking about it after, that's probably not a fair question to you, because we have no idea within a few tens of thousands of dollars what that is. So what I'm proposing, and let me know if you would agree, is that we would put all those costs together, they would present that in the capital budget, and you at that time could decide whether or not that was going to be a contribution of the town
Yeah.
Okay.
to help reduce the overall cost. That way we know, because for example, the sanitary sewer line has to extend all the way over into the Fairway Ridge Boulevard development, right? So that's a considerable utility extension. It's not something that we just, because it's on a septic tank now, right? I shouldn't even call it a septic tank, it's a holding tank that we pump out.
Yeah.
So there will be some considerable utility extension costs, but if we quote them all those costs, and then when the budget's presented, you at that time can look and say, okay, we'll take this, and this, as you had asked earlier on, or maybe you won't, I don't know, but at least it's in the spreadsheet at that point in
Yeah.
time.
All right.
Okay, we'll do that. That was it. The other things I think we already worked through. Those weren't continuing concerns after our first meeting. And you already looked at the bylaws. No concerns with the constitution of that group working on behalf of the town. That's all fine. Okay. That's everything I had, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. Recommendation from CCW, Sharing the Love donation request. That is a request from Kerry Roberts for $250, I believe.
Yep.
And so we need a motion. Councillor Brown?
I make a motion to give $250 to Kerry Roberts and for making sandwiches for the homeless on March 10th, 2020, with the funds to come from the food fund balance.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, so business arising from the delegation. Ms. Tanya Thorne, Jeff, you wrote a few points that we could put in a letter regarding our concern, regarding the policing, regarding the budget, regarding consultation, regarding...
I don't have that many notes, Mayor. What I had specifically that was discussed about a letter was send a letter to Tanya and Barry, or Barry and Tanya, whichever one, regarding policing costs, the credits for CPOs, and the rollout.
Right.
As far as policing, get an opinion. Get a formal opinion on tax billing and how to present the tax regarding policing bills. So I know there was some direction from GFOA, the Local Government Finance Association. I will check on that more formally. Mm-hmm. And then send feedback on how the local government fiscal framework allocation should be handled. And we've talked at this table about like a ratcheting system of once your assessment per capita got over a certain amount, you were ratcheted back because obviously you had a greater ability to raise funds than other communities. And I think those are reasonable things to send when they're discussing that. And again, I talked to Tanya downstairs. She goes, the kicker with this and this government is they may phone tomorrow and say, hey, we've got it drafted. Here it is. Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
She says, or it's 2 years from now.
Yeah.
She says, we just don't know.
Go ahead, Councillor Selk.
And I don't know where I'm getting this, I don't know, in the deep recesses of my brain or something, but I don't think that AUMA's model was a 30% model like the province rolled out. I think theirs was a significantly less funding model.
Right. On the police funding you're talking. Yeah, right. I'd have to do some digging.
Yeah.
One of the things we might want to say is, did you bother even considering AUMA's model where they were considering all of us as a collective and what would be a more appropriate and affordable funding model?
Right. And the other issue is with Bill 2, which was an obvious lack of consultation that needs to be addressed as ongoing when new bills are unveiled, because it left us in a very unpleasing situation where the Senate at that time didn't interpret the law the same way, And at the end of the day, we had to go to Tabor to try to get enlightened, and only to find out that what's lacking in the new legislation is possibly a reference to the MGA regarding the potential still, if council has to, if council say no, or council say yes, to someone coming for a liquor license of whatever sort, that can trigger a plebiscite from people in our town, on the no side or on the yes side, regardless. But the reference, when I asked why is the net reference there, well, because it's already in the MGA.
But just to clarify, the reference in the MGA, anyone in the community can force a plebiscite on any resolution you make. That's one of the tenets of the MGA for citizen protection, that you make a resolution tonight and 10% of the electorate don't like it, they can force a binding plebiscite on any resolution. And so what Mr. Hunter was saying was that you always, the residents always have the ability to force it to plebiscite, it's just in the MGA. And so we talked around that quite a bit, saying, well, I guess very few residents know they have that ability, by the way.
Yeah.
It's certainly not something that's known, and it's not anything that's mandated under this new Bill 2 amendment. So, but that's what that was the thing. At least we understood where they were coming from on it. That their thought was, if we get rid of the binding plebiscite requirement in the Liquor and Gaming Act, anyone can petition and then plebiscite a resolution of council. So if you approve a liquor license, the citizens can get a petition and force a plebiscite on the issue, and you may have to rescind your resolution.
So we also discussed at that point how unfortunate it was that in the repealing of the prohibition, they repealed also the mechanism that was there when first person came to ask for a license, it automatically had to trigger a plebiscite. And so Jeff came up with some kind of ideas that is still kind of going over, that maybe through a bylaw we can reinstate that very mechanism without having to force people to go through a plebiscite and to go and
Petition, you mean?
Petition,
Force them through
to go through petitions, which divided the community last time horribly, and we really don't want a repeat of the same misery. So,
well, the discussion we had, and my concern with this has been, if it's simply left to your discretion and you're supposed to just now determine who should and who shouldn't, which, fine, the intent was to get that control back in the local municipality, not in Edmonton. Fair enough. But if there's no criteria in the Act to guide you, or no discretion onto what types of licenses you can or can't approve, I worry that you're being set up for litigation. You're being set up for problems because you're agreeable to this and then you're not agreeable to this, or actually how it would go is you would not be agreeable first, then agreeable. And so my comment to the mayor was that perhaps before there's any application on the table, you create a bylaw and this is how these will be dealt with. And so even if the Act doesn't say you have to have a binding plebiscite, your bylaw might say any applications brought to it by the AGLC, once vetted by the AGLC to be determined to be legitimate, will go to binding plebiscite.
and that's it.
You won't rule on them. Your bylaw says, and I'm not suggesting, we'll have more debate about that later, but it may be well to get out in front of this to show a uniform approach to addressing them, so you never look like you're preferencing one application over another, right?
And we're not alone. A ton of women was with us there, and a ton of Sterling was not at the table, but in the same kind of idea. And McGrath is also wondering what the three others are going to do. So there is a little bit of a common approach here.
So we may want to look at that in the next month or so.
Yeah. So we asked what triggered all that change.
Yeah.
And we were told it's the summer villages.
Yeah, don't get me started in a public meeting.
The summer villages?
Yeah,
So
he said that
the
that's
sum-
why this was changed to accommodate summer villages.
So
Which doesn't make any sense to me, but I
I
wasn't.
don't
in the
really
majority.
understand where summer villages have anything to do with the towns, but whatever. That's what we were told.
Or prohibition for that matter.
Yeah, we were struggling with that a bit, and in the car with closed doors driving home, I could vent quite freely. I don't have the ability to do that right now, but the point is I don't really see the connection, but whatever.
Anyway, so if we could
So if you want
touch
to,
on that a little bit
Yeah.
in the letter.
if you want to, well, and let's make sure we have, so Bill 2 consultation, local government funding framework allocations, and
The
policing
policing.
costs, credits for CPOs, and the rollout.
Yes, that's right.
Have we captured the things you want in a letter to AUMA?
I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
Thank
If there,
you.
if there could be a resolution to send that letter.
Yeah. Let's pick on Councillor Selk today.
Make a motion to send the letter regarding the items we discussed with Tanya Thorne this evening.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, so under C2, Mr. Justin Lowe and his proposal. Honestly, I haven't seen any negative reaction to the idea of the health issue.
Just one question.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Mayor, you deferred to administration, so I guess we'll do the same. Jeff, you got a timeline when you want them to start on this?
Give me 1 second here. What I just told them when they were leaving is I said, why don't Randy and I and the Rotarians, and maybe we'll throw BDI on the phone and do a kickoff meeting next week.
Okay.
And let's look at what the logistics look like. The challenge we will have internally is getting the water line to them right away, simply because we have some contractual agreements with the campground to get that expansion done as soon as we can. So we're trying to get that done. And then we also promised, well, I shouldn't say we promised, we told we'd do everything we could to the cobblestone not to have 7th Avenue tore up during peak season this year. So we'd like to get that put to bed by the end of May. Now, it's supposed to be 17 below on the weekend with 25 centimeters of snow, so that's going to set back a few things. But we don't have to have the water line there before the spray park's there. They can commence, they can get most of that done, and then we can get the water line there. That's a long extension for a water line. But I wanted to just mention to you, one of the concerns I had with Bart was pressure on that area. So that area is fed from a line that goes down Main Street, and it comes up 4th Avenue, and it feeds the pool. So what Bart did, and I got his email here, is he sent out Curtis and Wade, and they put on the corner of Main Street and 4th Avenue, they installed a pressure gauge, and the static pressure was 90 PSI, so lots of good pressure there. When they opened the 4-inch outlet at the hydrant on the entrance to the pool, the water pressure on Main Street went down to 30 PSI, which is a concern, because obviously then everyone can tell when the water park turns on. But that was with a full-out 4-inch line, which will not be the case. So then they worked with BDI to determine at 250 gallons per minute, what does that look like as far as flows? So they put a reducer to have it a 2.5-inch outlet, and when they turned the 2.5-inch outlet full blast at the hydrant, the Main Street pressure was 60 PSI, which is very acceptable for any fixtures in a home or a business usually to do that. I mean, if in some weird instance the spray park was on and 30 rooms at the hotel decided to shower at the same time, you might notice something, but that would be pretty unusual. That wouldn't happen. Right? Because the spray park's only open during, peak warmth of the day.
Yeah.
So that would be uncommon. And then he also checked the depth of the sewer line coming in at 4th Avenue is 10 feet deep. So we were just trying to get an indication of the logistics of getting into that line. Bart doesn't have any concerns about handling the excess water in that line. He thinks it'll be fine. We also explored if we could capture that water and irrigate with it. That's the preference. But here's the problem. We already irrigate with raw water that's gravity fed. Yes. So to put in a whole bunch of infrastructure to now irrigate with water that's pumped out of a cistern underneath doesn't make any sense for us. We've put in a very expensive, very nice raw water irrigation line, and we don't have to pump it.
Yeah.
So yes, we could capture the water, but there isn't a lot of upside for capturing it. from a financial point of view, logistics point of view, because we just put that, I say we just, 8 years ago or so, we put that raw water line in there. So we kind of abandoned that idea, and just looking at a straight dump into the sanitary. So that's a 12-inch sewer line that goes through there. There's no capacity issues. And Bart thinks that'll be fine.
Thank you.
So are we good to move ahead with a dump system at
Yes.
the Lions Park location?
Yes.
Councillor?
I wouldn't mind a resolution
Yes, I'm
on type
just
and
thinking.
location.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Drew, you want to do that?
Resolution that we approve a dump system for the spray park at the Lions Park location.
Okay, so questions? No, all in favor? Thank you. I think
Just
maybe we
one
put
other
it to
thing,
bed.
we did award the bid to BDI a couple of weeks ago. I asked Justin, in fact, he's already emailed them, it's on my email now. We've asked BDI to rebid the project without the recirculation system.
Right.
So they told us roughly what that discount would be, but we'll get another formal bid from them with new specs and everything. So we should have that soon, and we'll meet with them next week.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Well, we're moving along. 8A, the peace officer report. There is some interesting things that have been announced. There's some pilot projects that have been announced for selected municipalities, and more to come on this one. So it's regarding extending their authority. And
We're one of those pilot projects.
more to come.
We are the pilot project, yeah.
Okay, and there are 26 reported investigation, as you can see. Our peace officer is busy. Anything else that you would want to comment regarding this? No? Okay. Thank you very much. On the question, I have a question for you, Councillor Brown. I know when we met informally at the extra food, you mentioned that you had an interview that was set up that really did not work at all, with the reporter not showing up regarding the...
But it did happen on the phone. Temple City Star didn't show up for the interview, but then when I called them, they decided to interview me on the phone. Councillor Selk wasn't able to be there.
Okay, can you give us a little bit of a sense of the interview, just so that...
All that I brought up was the open house. That's all I talked about. Where,
Okay.
when, who was invited, that we were going to take it to the seniors on the 16th. That's it.
Okay, so in fact, you talked about the poster that was
Exactly.
distributed.
Exactly.
So,
I was trying to get people to come. I
right.
piqued their interest. I didn't completely answer questions because I want you to come to the open house to find out the answers.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking you is because I'm doing a letter to citizens and I'm inviting them also to that meeting. And so I just wanted to make sure that we cover, yeah, that's a little bit where I was going. So I just wanted to make sure we were in sync with each other.
No, he did ask, how much we were looking at. I said $5 million. He said he was seeing on our poster we have, Shem had put on the building that we're looking at.
The Duchess building.
He asked where it came from. I said Duchess. So but essentially it all revolved around the poster, and the information that was on the poster is all.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Thank you so much. Okay, so correspondence, don't see none this time, which is a rare thing. And so now we're going to go into closed session. We have to discuss the intermunicipal collaboration framework, and we have also to do a council internal review. This time we're going to be on smack time, or the right time to do it. So thank you to the media. Thank you so much for your presence. Always much appreciated.
Motion to have a recess for,
I'm not sure how long it's gonna be. We just ordered some pizza again. It should be here any minute.
yeah,
Okay.
good.
So, Councillor, do you want to maybe recess before we go to in closed session?
Closed session, I do, yeah.
So would you please
I did
put
make
in
that motion.
motion to recess? Okay. All in favor? Thank you very much. So go do a